Welcome in to the Set It Off Network. We are doing game previews, and today we are previewing Ole Miss hitting the road to take on Oklahoma, two one-loss SEC teams, two top 15 teams, and a game that really should be the headline, but old Vanderbilt, decided to steal the show this weekend. But
hmm
this is a close game, Will. This is one of those games, teams coming off of, one team coming off of a loss, and then Oklahoma had a bye week last week against South Carolina, but for the most part, coming off of back-to-back losses there. Oklahoma sitting at a 4.5 point favorite right now. 52.5 is the over/under for this football game. This game will be a noon game on ABC, which is a disservice to both of these teams because they're really good football teams. But Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Will, how are we feeling about two of these teams that have kind of got punched in the mouth the last couple weeks? Both got to kind of establish themselves back into the race. So a big game for both of these teams for sure.
Yeah, big game. Just like we talked about in our Mizzou Vanderbilt preview, somebody's going to come out of this game 7-1 and be looking really good to have a chance at a playoff. And I'm expecting some fireworks. We've had some fireworks in that Ole Miss Georgia game. I'm kind of expecting the same thing here. Watch out for Ole Miss. Because they're coming off of a loss, and it just feels like teams after they lose, they're a little more dangerous. And I found that out at least when Oklahoma went into Williams-Brice this past weekend and beat up on my South Carolina Gamecocks. It was really sad. But that win has to re-inspire some confidence if you're an Oklahoma Sooners fan, because it wasn't very inspiring when they played Texas. So yeah, things kind of trending in the right direction. Oklahoma's got to get this one because they're on a run of five ranked teams in a row to end the year. And it starts here with Ole Miss. Fortunately, you do get them at home, but that's tough. A noon kickoff, 11 a.m. Central Time for a big game like this.
Yeah, and from the Oklahoma side of things, like you mentioned, that schedule is an absolute gauntlet. I've said I think Oklahoma could finish this year outside of the top 25 just because of that schedule coming up. They really had a front load that was not all that tempting, and we kind of talked about them being undefeated going into the Red River game, and what happened against Texas happened, and it's over with now, but like you said, every week in the SEC is a gauntlet and a chance to right the ship. And Oklahoma and Ole Miss both have that chance. Both of them playing their biggest game since they've lost. From the Ole Miss side of things, coming off of that game at Georgia, where you felt like you really competed in that football game, like you had that one in your grasp, and Georgia kind of stole that one. When Ole Miss disappeared, we talked about it in our reaction. 13 or 11 plays, 13 total yards for Ole Miss in the fourth quarter of that football game, getting outscored 17-0 against Georgia on the road. But this is a team that went 5 for 5 in their first five possessions with five touchdowns against Georgia. So we know this Ole Miss offense can move the ball. They've found their quarterback in Trinidad Chambers. I don't think there's any more debate with the Austin Simmons thing going on there. He has really established himself as QB1. And Lane and that offense is always going to travel. It's just, what is it? What am I going to get from this Ole Miss defense? This is a defense they gave up over 200 yards last week on the ground to Georgia. And is this going to be a team that's going to struggle to stop the run again? Oklahoma, not the best running team, but was able to put up their best performance of the season against South Carolina, where they were able to run the ball. So taking a lot of that pressure off of John Mateer, because we've seen in games where John Mateer can't establish that run game that he has trouble turning the football over. So that is something I think is going to be the storyline of this football game is, can Ole Miss stop Oklahoma from running the football? Because if they can figure out a way to stop Oklahoma from running, they really set themselves up for success if they force John Mateer to throw the ball, 40 times in the football game. He's already got 6 interceptions on the year. We saw when he had to throw the ball a bunch against Texas, 3 turnovers in that football game. And one thing Ole Miss does not do is turn the football over. So, I'm kind of leaning Ole Miss on this one. I really liked what I saw out of the Rebels last week. I think they're a really, really good football team. My biggest concern with them is definitely their inability to stop the run, though. So that is going to be the storyline of this football game for sure on Saturday, and it should be a fun one, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really, I mean, I like you mentioned about Ole Miss. I'm thinking I have some more confidence in them, even though they lost to Georgia. The way they played in that game, I'm feeling better about them. And dare I say, I like them in this spot. Coming off a loss, I think they're gonna come back stronger. But key thing to look at in this one. I was just looking at some stats here. Oklahoma is second in the nation in points against. So that's just a testament to that defense. They haven't allowed, looks like more than 23 points in a single game, and that was just that Texas game, right? Everything besides that hasn't been above 17 points. And then you look at Ole Miss, they haven't scored less than 24 points. So can that Oklahoma defense shut down Ole Miss's offense? Because we know Ole Miss, that offense, they can put up some points. So just going to be really interested to see how that offense matches up against Oklahoma's defense in this one.
Yeah, we kind of talked about the styles making fights in the Vanderbilt Missouri preview, and these two teams couldn't be more different, right? A team in Oklahoma built on defense finally feels like they have the quarterback to kind of run the show on offense, but with the injury and everything that, John Mateer right now feels like more like a wild card. And then you look over at the Ole Miss side and you see what Trinidad Champus has been able to do, and he has elevated that team to feels like a new level. But on the other side, you look at that Ole Miss defense, and they look very susceptible to teams that can run the football. So Georgia was kind of able to wear them down there, and was able to. Georgia scored on every single possession in that football game, except for the final one where they took knees. So the opportunity is there for Oklahoma to kind of play their game. And if you're one of those people who believes that defense wins championships, then Oklahoma is probably the team that you're looking at this weekend. Already a 4.5 point favorite in this game, so a lot of people are going to be riding that Oklahoma thing and seeing. But this is a big game for Oklahoma. Like you mentioned, we talked about the whole schedule dynamic with them. Like it feels like if Oklahoma doesn't get this win, things are going to go off the rails for them, because there's going to be a lot of problems that are probably going to arise if you lose this football game at home. If you're Ole Miss though and you lose this football game, still feels like you have a shot to make the CFP, right? If you can go 10-2, we've seen that that's the magic number. It feels like in this conference to go 10-2 to be a college football playoff lock. And Will, it's kind of crazy. You're going to look back on this season for Ole Miss. If they were to happen to go 10-2, they bought themselves some runway here because they didn't lose to Kentucky, right? You look at last year's team, that loss to Kentucky kept them out of the postseason, and this year, they were able to scrap and fight and claw and find a way to beat Kentucky this year. So it's not a must-win situation, kind of like it was last year for this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the schedule looks very manageable after this compared to Oklahoma, who has four ranked opponents to end the year after this. Ole Miss, they get South Carolina. I think that's probably a tough game, though. The Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State. You would think that's pretty manageable, but I was pretty wild, right, with my flaming hot take in our Ole Miss Georgia preview saying, I don't know. Ole Miss might have four losses in them, so I don't know if they're gonna have four losses. Honestly, after seeing how they played against Georgia, but I'm gonna pick it. I think they're gonna get another one here and just trend more towards that prediction I had in that game. So I think Oklahoma's gonna get it done at home. I think that defense will be able to shut them down enough, but I do think there will be good amount of points in this one still.
Back-to-back weeks picking against Ole Miss, man. These Ole Miss people are going to love you, though. I
Yeah,
am not. I am not going to go that way. I'm going to pick Ole Miss to win this game, and obviously, with Ole Miss winning the game, I think they're going to cover. I just think Ole Miss is a better football team. Like, I mean, just off of the eye test, I watched a lot of these two teams play this year, and I just feel like Ole Miss is the better team. And I think, like you said, coming off of a loss like that, I honestly feel like Ole Miss should be holding themselves higher after playing a game like they did at Georgia, being so close, that might have brought out a little confidence in Ole Miss, saying, "Hey, we are one of the best teams in the SEC this year, and this is their chance to make their statement." And I think they will, and I think they get the win on the road in Norman, Oklahoma. That game, 12 o'clock on ABC. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you watching our Ole Miss Oklahoma preview. Make sure you keep an eye out this week for Week 9. We have a ton of previews coming out, so make sure you check those out. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching this video right now, just look at the bottom of your screen right now, whatever device you're looking at, and see if that little subscribe button's pressed. It should there. Matter of fact, just turn on the notifications. Then you'll be aware anytime we post anything, and you can see what kind of dumb things we have to say throughout the entirety of the week anytime we post them. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you follow us on the Twitter, the IG, the InstaFlop, whatever they call them things nowadays. Hit us up in the DMs, Skype us, do whatever you got to do.
TikTok on the clock, right?
Whatever. Yeah,
TikTok.
yeah, TikTok. Don't forget
TikTok.
about the
Yeah.
kids. Will's over here doing TikTok dances on the socials. So that's something to keep an eye out for every single week. But thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. We will see you guys next time.